With close to a 40% pullback, the month of September has not been kind to Cardano. But what could we expect to happen next as we exit September and go into October? In this video, we're going to dive into the world of Cardano and specifically the technical analysis on ADA. If you find this video useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here. Right, with this said done out of the way, let's dive into this technical analysis on Cardano. We're going to start things off with the weekly chart like we would usually do, just to talk through the structure of how things have been forming. Everything kick-started back in March of 2020. This is where we started to see a nice steady rise to the upside. This was basically our wave one of our 5 impulse waves. This topped out in July of 2020 before us going down into the first correction wave. This bottomed out of September of 2020 with a nice sideways trade before things kick-started in November, and we really kind of got things moving in this third wave in December up into the new year. We rose up to top out the top of wave 3 here up in May of 2021. So if we take a look from March through to May 2021, we actually gained over 14,000% in gains in this little section here. We then went down into the 4th wave correction. Again, this kind of bottomed out in June, and we also had another low point in July just down here. Okay, so overall there was actually almost 3 identical touch points, one in May, one in June, and one in July. Then after that, we started to see a good steady rise to the upside for the month of August. Again, we actually set new all-time highs just at the end of August, up at $3.10, just ahead of the Cardano smart contracts going live. We then have seen the latest thing we've seen is obviously the pullback, right? 40% or 38% in 20 days. Now, this pullback has been courtesy of several macro events that have happened. Obviously, we see things going on in China with the real estate market, and obviously, having to liquidate assets in order to pay back debts. Obviously, that's shaken the stock market. It's shaken a little bit of the crypto market as well. Bitcoin's had a huge factor on this. Bitcoin's been quite volatile. And the question I really do have for you guys is, are you being shaken out of the market? Are those whales shaking you out of your crypto? Let me know in the comments down below. For me personally, I still have good vision of where we are going. And this is up towards our $7.22 or potentially overstretching into that $10 range. We have to bear in mind that $10 would put us on a market capitalization of about $320 billion. That is smaller than Ethereum currently, and something that I think is quite within reach. Obviously, market capitalization doesn't actually mean too much. It is a simple calculation of the last sold price multiplied by the circulating supply. It is not a barrier of entry to, say, a certain price point, and it definitely doesn't represent any kind of liquidity or the amount of money that's gone into a project. For example, buying Cardano at less than 10 cents, and where it is today at $2, for example. The current market capitalization assumes that your Cardano that you bought at 10 cents was also valued at $2.05. Okay, so we understand that market capitalization isn't really a metric that we can use, but people would like to refer to it and like to kind of understand where things would roughly rank. And if we were to go up to $10, I think that would be about a $320 billion market cap. And again, so for those people who think that's not possible, it is still less than Ethereum is today. So for us, that's quite achievable, and I don't think it's too much of an ask either. We could, of course, overextend all of this as well, because the circulating supply is significantly smaller than most people actually know. And this is because a lot of it is actually delegated, staked, and out of circulation. So again, there's a squeeze on the supply. There's going to be a demand for the token, I think, as things really heat up, obviously as those transactional volumes really kick in, and that will really help us push towards these fantastic high numbers. So overall, everything's looking pretty good. Currently at $2.05 after a bit of a pullback. Some fantastic opportunities, in my opinion, to buy the dip, or to basically buy the fear with the discount that's currently out there for ADA. And we do have some interesting expectations of where to go. We can see the stochastic RSI down here when we started our impulse waves to the upside. This was oversold, as in we were basically given it a discounted rate. We then go up into the overbought area just over here for the top of wave 1, back to oversold for the bottom of wave 2, up into overbought for wave 3, down into oversold for wave 4, And right now we were pushing up nicely into the overbought area in line with our expectations of 1 and 3. But most recently we have pulled back down. This actually allows us to then see a very significant high growth coming further forward. So although we have pulled back 40%, this kind of natural correction, or unnatural correction as it may be currently, allows us to see a significant push back to the upside. So we'll be pushing back up into the overbought area, in my opinion, once we enter into October. And we're going to be in a really strong position to do so with our daily, our weekly, and of course the hourly, when everything lines up nicely for that push. So overall, this correction, although frustrating, is an opportunity, in my opinion, where I do dollar cost average a better position ahead of where my expectations are going further forward. And for those people who missed out on the Bitcoin video that I did yesterday, where I talk about is the bull run over, I dive into why my expectations are that the bull run is not over, and my expectations for Bitcoin to hit 181k. I go through a lot of different things in that video, so you might find it useful if you're still a bit of a skeptic onto whether or not we're in a bear market or a bull market. Ultimately, things, in my opinion, will be heating up, and all we're seeing right now is the volatility that usually comes from a month of September. So right now, everything on the weekly charts lining up, the structure hasn't changed. We are still moving nicely to the upside. And of course, even in our third impulse wave to the upside over here, there were moments where we were correcting. Nothing moves up in straight lines, and eventually you do move to the upside overall. This is slightly steeper than we would have liked to have seen, but also just allows us to see a nice opportunity to buy more of the dip. So let's jump down into our daily view and take a look at some of those daily candles and what's been going on most recently. And before we talk about the most recent kind of movement over here, let's talk about the high of wave 3, the low of wave 4, and the price expectations according to the Fibonacci. So we are taking the current performance into consideration. We also take the performance of moving up to wave 3 and the lows to wave 4. This then allows us to see where we are pushing up with our Fibonacci. We can see the 4.236 shows a prediction of $7.22. Now this obviously, this current performance doesn't take into consideration smart contracts and dApps that have built on the network. So ultimately, as we start to see more projects launch and more transactional volume, this is going to be outside of the speculation that we've seen so far. And in fact, might actually have an impact on the price overall, and therefore push us above and beyond this $7.22. Just take a look at Solana, for example. So right now, obviously, taking a look at this, my expectations will be $7.22, pushing up to maybe $10. And as things change and adapt, we'll obviously do a bit of a recalculation and reforecast on where we think things are likely to go. But for now, that's my expectations until something actually changes that outside of this data that we can rely on. So let's talk about what's been going on most recently. Now we understand where things are going and how I got there. Here we can obviously see that we topped out at $3.10, just up here before we started to have a bit of a pullback courtesy of Bitcoin and of course the Chinese real estate market. Overall, we can see we pulled down, touching our trend line. This was Bitcoin pulling us down initially. We then surged back up with a nice bounce to the upside and good recovery. Then we started to slip down courtesy of Bitcoin again, and then the real estate market pulled us down even closer today. This week, I should say. Now, ultimately, we can see as we actually came down and bounced from the 618 of the Fibonacci retracement area, this area just here at 190. These areas on the chart, they resonate incredibly well, which is why they're so reliable. You can also see that this one here just whipped below our 702. Here was 702 was a good support line for us as well. So right now we are fighting just to try to get above the 702, stay above the 702 most recently on this daily chart. We'll try to reclaim our support line of our trend line here, and hopefully that will hold. If not, we'll actually continue this move to the upside in a slow and steady way for the next couple of weeks, potentially having a bit of volatility in here. The main thing that we want to do is obviously not only just keep the 618, but keep a $1.83 support level down here. This is an area that we were really fighting up against on the way up originally, but also on our way down and looking for recovery. This was an area that we were fighting quite heavily. So for us right now, we want to make sure not only that we try to keep this 618, but if we do lose the 618 area, that's the $2 range, then we obviously want to make sure that we absolutely hold this area here, which comes in at 183. Okay, so if we drop down lower than $1.90, then $1.83 is the area that we absolutely really must hold. That has to hold if we really want to see a nice strong recovery. Otherwise, it may take slightly longer for that recovery to come in. But that being said, you know, sometimes things have been running a little bit too fast and things do need to slow down a little bit. But we are a few months left of this bull run, right? So we are expecting Bitcoin to kind of top out by December, in my opinion, where I then expect all the altcoins to already start heating up and moving and decoupling from Bitcoin and moving in a really strong way by the end of December going into January in the new year. Ultimately, the new year is going to be pretty big for many altcoins. Obviously, not all will go at the same time, so there'll be a bit of a phase where money will be rolling around the market, and we will expect some of the new all-time highs and some of these price predictions that we've been talking about to be hit in the new year for some of these altcoins. So overall, for Cardano here, it's at a critical moment where we are looking to kind of hold these support lines and continue this growth to the upside. Now, when we take a look at the stochastic RSI on the daily chart, we can see that we are oversold. We've been oversold for quite some time, though. This actually entered here at the latter part of August, right? So we've pretty much been in this oversold status on the daily chart for pretty much all of September. So once things actually start heating up, we're going to really start to see this move needle back to the upside. We see that we were overbought initially as well, pretty much for all of July and yeah, pretty much a month actually up in the overbought area. So it's not uncommon to hang around in these areas for quite some time when things are in your favor. And like I said, we've had a significant push to the upside here. We've had a small cool off here after a pretty big push to the upside. The next leg should be in October, a pretty good push back to the upside where we talk about new price discovery. I wouldn't be surprised if we were to actually take out our $4.84 area on the next leg, so in October. So I do think we're going to be in some interesting times on Cardano. So at this point, I am going to jump over to the advice.io dashboard. The advice.io dashboard uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to give us the underlying value of a cryptocurrency. It analyzes all of the underlying data that we cannot usually see inside the charts and gives us an idea of what is going on by a rating. We can see that the Cardano rating is a B3 overall, but it breaks it down a little bit further into what they call power factors. Here we can see the fear and greed index is a D. It's extremely fearful, in line with pretty much most of the crypto space right now. So this tells me that there is a lot of ADA up at a discounted price as people are scared that we are going into a bear market, and basically retail investors are being shaken out of the market. So this is kind of the fear that I like to buy up when I see that I'm in an impulse wave to the upside and we slip down into an extremely fearful situation. This is the kind of fear that I think is absolutely fantastic to buy, and the kind of fear that I do buy up myself. We can see the moving averages have been affected with a recent pullback. With a 40% pullback, it's inevitable that you are going to affect those moving averages. And here we can see that we are at a C2 rating overall. The Sharpe ratio has also had a pullback, dropping below the 50-day average. We can now see that that's also a C2 rating. When we actually take a look, though, at the profitability, this is still up there as an A1 rating, with the AMI-HAD ratio, the liquidity, being an A2. So no problems with liquidity, no problems with profitability. A little bit of an issue with the risk-reward ratio, slipping below that 50-day average, lots of fear up for sale, and the moving averages have been affected. So overall, there are some problems with the underlying data. It's hard to shy away from it, and it's pretty obvious that we should be, concerned to a degree. That being said, when you actually analyze the charts coupled with all of this data, you can see that actually we are in an impulse wave to the upside. We are in a month historically where we always see pullbacks in general, and it always becomes self-fulfilling. When people know that September is a month for a pullback, people often gear up ready for selling at the end of August, sell in September or the beginning of September, causing the pullback in itself. So it is self-fulfilling to a degree. So we have to obviously bear that in mind. With Bitcoin and everything that's been going on there, and obviously the amount of manipulation around Bitcoin, it's obvious that we are seeing some manipulation and some shaking of retail investors out of the market. So I am interested to know whether you guys are being shaken out. Let me know in the comments below. So let's actually jump down into our hourly view. This is where we start to see what's been going on most recently, hour by hour. And this is where we will start to actually analyze whether or not we are looking for new lower lows or whether we are hoping to actually sustain where we are. Now, knowing that the artificial intelligence has picked up on a very significant amount of fear and the risk reward ratio has also dropped below our 50-day average, we have to be open to the idea that we are going to drop down lower than our 618, lower than our $1.90. Okay, now I don't think that that is necessarily a guarantee, but we're going to get close to potentially breaking this support down here. Okay, so my expectations are, as we continue to move up to where we are right now, In the next few hours, we'll continue the growth to the upside, and then we'll have a bit of a pull back. And the aim here is to actually find an area that we can support on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly grab a horizontal ray here, and I'm going to mark this area just here, right? So this is the support line that I would like to see hold, okay? And that would come down at 196, okay? So my expectations would be that we'd push up a little bit further, and then we'll pull back. We might get a few bouncing, and we're likely to try to find a support level. The aim of the game here on this pullback is to set a higher low, okay? And we want to take out this stochastic RSI back to the oversold area without doing as much price damage as, or as least price damage as possible. So we're going to push up. That's kind of inevitable because we're only up in the overbought area just recently. So in the next couple of hours, we'll probably peak this and then we'll pull back. So I anticipate that we'll probably move up to probably this area around here. Seems like a pretty sensible area. So about $2.07. So about an extra 1 cent from where we are right now. Not too much. And then I would anticipate that we'd fall back down. I'd like to think that we're going to hold the 196 area. That should then bottom us out over here and allow us then to continue the growth to the upside. What we're looking for is this higher low area, higher than here, so that we can then set a trend line to the upside overall. So if I grab a trend, what we'll be looking for is a bit of a trend like this, so that we can basically say we pull back, we bounce from this line, we move up, we bounce in this line, and then we find ourselves getting stuck into this triangular wedge here. So a pushback, a bounce, and then a break to the upside. Overall, as we exit out of September, we will be in a strong way. Until then, though, I am still expecting volatility. So the other thing that could occur here is actually we pull back, and basically we just kind of trade sideways inside this area here for a while. It's okay to do so as long as we stay inside this area. This is, of course, the main battle area that we've seen before. The 618, the 702, the 786. This is a key area for us. And ideally being above this area is the best, but obviously not going below 183 is also going to be absolutely vital. So whilst we see volatility on the smaller time frame for the next few days, we'd be hopeful that we'll be able to get that recovery in, but with the sentiment in the market being so fearful, the expectation should actually be that we're more than likely actually just be trading in this area and potentially falling down a little bit lower. With us wanting to hold this area, that's going to be the key for us. Overall, I am still confident long-term on Cardano, though. This small-time volatility is specific to September, and with Bitcoin doing what it has done, I do think that Bitcoin is also going to be on the road to recovery really soon as well. There is price expectations for Bitcoin to reach about 60K in the month of October, and as a result, Cardano will also follow that trend and should also hit some pretty interesting areas itself. Overall, small-time volatility on the hourly, some pretty good stats showing on our daily, as in we are oversold. We have been oversold for a while, looking for a big push to the upside. My price expectations for October would be that 2.618 area of the $4.84. And of course, the weekly chart is lining up very nicely with our 5 impulse waves. Everything's looking like it is moving nicely to the upside overall, for the bull run to peak out there towards our $10 range. Overall, I'm pretty confident with Cardano long term as well, even outside of this bull run. Something that I will be doing will be taking profits in this bull run to put back into Cardano in the bear market ahead of the 2025 run. Ultimately, I do anticipate Cardano being one of the biggest projects in the space overall, and I do think that it is going to completely radically change the world as we know it. So for me, Cardano is a bit of a no-brainer long term as well. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there. Hopefully you have found this useful and informative. If you have, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new, why not subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.